Welcome to the VMUG Speaker Support Initiatives Leader Panel. The purpose of this forum is to bring together our partner representatives and volunteer leadership to discuss partner session content at VMUG events. We hope this presentation will provide valuable insight to you, our partners, straight from a few of our leaders as you continue to prepare and submit your session abstracts for consideration for upcoming UserCons. The planning process for a VMUG UserCon begins 4 months pre-event for these leaders as they are involved with VMUG headquarters in every aspect of the event planning. One of the biggest responsibilities in this role is agenda creation, including keynote, VMware, and partner session selections. Each leadership team takes careful consideration when filling their agenda and looks to include content based on current industry trends and local member feedback. These leaders all have extensive experience within the VMware ecosystem, multiple years served in a leadership role within their local VMUG, and are representatives of events where we typically have an overwhelming number of partner session applications. With that, I'd like to ask our leaders to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Steve Athanas. I've been a leader of the Boston VMUG for the past 3 years, and for my day job, I'm the Director of Platforms and Systems Engineering at the University of Massachusetts.
I'm Lawrence D., leader for San Diego. I've been a leader for 6.5 years and have been involved with the group for a number of years longer than that. And I am an enterprise architect with a focus on infrastructure at CareFusion, recently acquired by Becton Dickerson.
My name is Kyle Ruddy. I am part of the Indie VMUG group. I've been a leader there for almost 4 years now, and I am a senior virtualization guy at Salesforce.
Our first question for the leaders is, what do you look for in selecting partner abstracts for your agenda?
First and foremost, what I'm looking for is if a session is going to bring value to our attendees, right? That's really important to us, and it's important, I think, both to our partner sponsors as well as the VMUG organization and our attendees. So it benefits all three. If we have stuff that's really valuable, it makes our partners look good, right, that they're subject matter experts. Our attendees are getting a lot out of it, which means that they're going to want to sign up for the next one and increase our audience for the next go-around, which means there's more people the next time for partners to get their message in front of. Vendor agnostic is always going to be something we look for. It doesn't have to be completely 100% vendor neutral, but is it something that you can get value from even if you don't own the product that's being discussed? If we're talking about storage, is there general information in there, or is it just about the product that's being represented?
I would say we start with a process of defining tracks of content that we're going to cover, and we're going to be looking at, as Steve mentioned, industry trends, what's important in our user community. Once we've picked those tracks, we then take a look at the abstracts that apply. So there could be some abstracts that get removed from consideration simply because they don't fit within the agenda plan that we have for whatever reason. So one of the considerations we'll take, as Steve mentioned, is the content. We're looking for abstracts that or presenters that we know have a history of being educational versus salesy, and then also take into account if there's been a recent presentation. If a certain vendor has presented to our group recently and this is a repeat of that same presentation, then we probably would look to get an alternate presentation.
So one of the other things that we look for, as well as what's already been mentioned, was our event used to be called Demo Days. So we used to really push for our sponsors to have demos, have something that includes some way of being interactive with either the product or with the audience.
Thank you, leaders. Our next question is, how do you define too salesy?
You can almost tell, is this going to be a commercial when you're reading the abstract? The key there is if the abstract is trying to sell me something, I know that the rest of the session is going to sell me something. If the abstract is like, come learn why our widget is going to save you time, effort, and energy, and it dices, it slices, if you're telling me that in the abstract, I know what the session is going to be. Anytime a session starts with a a product offering. I mean, I've watched people get up and walk out of those, and that's not good for anybody. I think it's important to know that you want to lead a session with something that makes people interested to stay there, even if they don't have budget for your solution, even if they don't have a need for your solution. So it needs to be a little bit more generalized. It's hard to see this in an abstract, but I've seen it once or twice in person, and if you have a session that is starting to lean towards, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt about other solutions that are out there, you're clearly into salesy territory. Don't disparage other, potential sponsors that are there in a session when they may be presenting right next door. That's not benefiting anybody.
Are we looking at backgrounds, or are we looking all about the product? Is this an introduction to the product? Is this an introduction to a problem? So there's a lot of kind of analysis as far as, is there general knowledge that can be learned from attending the session, or is this going to be all about said specific product?
One of the things that gets to me is that sense when a vendor comes out and says, hey, my solution is the equivalent of a hammer, and therefore everything out there is a nail. And that's a very negative salesy approach. Presentation that says, look, here's this technology, and there were a lot of storage ones, so let's just use SSDs. Someone that will go in and talk about, hey, the different types of read-write patterns, the difference between read and write and the blender effect and what have you, that becomes educational. And then, okay, and our product is a really good fit for this scenario. Can work for others, but this is the one that it's really good at. That becomes that educational, informational. You walk away going, ooh, I learned something and I can use this information, versus having just a sales pitch. Going beyond knowing that you have something as to how to successfully deploy and use the technology. So it's, how is this going to provide value? What are the real dependencies and requirements to successfully use it? You're not trying to beat up on your competitors, but there is the how do you differentiate, if at all, your product versus another. You get into, hey, here's this technology, how to successfully use it, how it's differentiated in a not spin way. That's how those are things we're looking for. And if they don't have it, we consider salesy.
Our next question is, think about a great partner presentation you remember attending or hearing attendees talk about at a VMUG. What made that presentation stand out?
It's always about energy. It's always about attendee interaction. You want people asking questions. You want it to be informational. You want everybody to learn from it. Get some of the people that are there involved. Make it more of not a presentation, but a group discussion. That's what we've seen as, the better sessions, especially the better rated sessions.
Some of our better ones have been from systems integrators or VARs, where they've come in and presented on technology and would list many vendors in a given segment and do, again, pros and cons, best fit, what have you. One of the best ones we had was a Hyper-V versus vSphere by a systems integrator that had their senior engineer for each technology get up and compare them. There wasn't anyone in the audience, and hundreds of people that weren't paying rapt attention to that presentation, because it was very detailed technically and very not marketing checkbox, but hey, when it really comes to using this, how does this really meet the need and function? That was probably one of the best from a vendor presentation. Ones that really focus on introducing the technology. I can think of their presentation was really more educational about how and when to use the technology. And then, oh, by the way, they happen to have something that worked in that space, but it was really more about the technology. To the extent that I can see that in an abstract, or that a vendor has a reputation about presenting that kind of information, those are vendors that will get rated higher as we're comparing different abstracts.
Integrator partners and vendor partners can come up with very different ways to present information that can be equally as impactful. I think it was Kyle that said, energy is your trump card, right? If you bring a high octane, really engaging, really interactive presenter up there, that is absolutely going to carry the session way more so than if you have somebody come up there who's going to click through the slides and read the screens to people. That'll kill anything. It doesn't matter what the content is. But as far as content goes, the vendor ones that I've seen that were really excellent will talk in general terms. They'll start out by talking generally about a problem that exists in the marketplace or something specific to VMware, like, hey, here's this issue that's in VMware. Here are some ways around it. Never mentioning their product at all. And say, here's some ways around it. Here's kind of plan A. Here's plan B. You may have a design requirement that pushes you into plan C, and talk about those different ways to do it. And then in the last block of time, maybe, 10 minutes or so, they say, and now that you know that, here's how our product solves that in a tenth of the time, at substantially reduced cost. It's more manageable, whatever that, differentiator is. You show it at the very end. And don't give up everything about it, because then it gets people curious enough to come by your booth and have a longer conversation and get you, frankly, more qualified leads out of it, right? Because now you know that they're interested enough to come talk to you, and you've whet their interest enough that you haven't kind of given it out there. From an integrator perspective, the best one I can think of, this one specifically was talking about virtual desktops, Horizon View, right? But they spent almost the entire session talking about different things you need to think about when deploying VDI. And of course, a lot of that was storage. How many spindles do you need? What type of spindles do you need? How do you know how much I/O you need? How do you calculate a boot storm? Literally, all that stuff they threw out there. How many pools do you need? What are the different design pieces? They walked through, as much as they could in a 50-minute block. But then at the very, very end, it was like 2 slides. They were like, and if you're looking for help on this, we've done this successfully at boom, list of customers and how many nodes they've deployed at those reference customers, and like 1 or 2 quotes from the customers about what a great job they did. And they're like, we'd love to talk to you about it because we know that we can get you there, in half the time or a quarter of the time that you could do it yourself. The key similarity between the vendor and the integrator there is that there was information there for every single attendee, and they set themselves up as authoritative subject matter experts in both. For the vendor, they said, we know all about this space and we came up with a product to solve a problem here. And the integrator showed that they know what they're talking about and they've done it before. So again, they delivered, completely valuable information, right off the top that had nothing to do, or it did have to do with their product, but they kind of didn't tease that out to the end. And at the end, they say, here's how we solve your problem. So it gets people excited. It gives them information they can use and really differentiates yourself instead of simply trying to market a solution saying, hey, we're experts in this and we are a resource to you that you can come to solve your business needs.
Thank you, leaders. Our next question is, what type of presentation would make you consider a partner as a potential vendor for your company?
Understanding my needs. So again, that I go back to if you're selling a hammer, don't tell me everything's a nail. So we've certainly had plenty of partners and vendors come in and go, oh, our expertise is X, and you obviously need X. Well, no, actually I don't. So that approach is very much a turn off. And the flip side is understanding our situation and then how that technology or the company and their expertise would apply. And so that's how the process I'd start with to consider a potential vendor for my company.
From my perspective, it would all be about a displayed knowledge of real-world scenarios in whatever vertical that is trying to be presented upon. So do you have resources on hand that can answer questions? Are there especially the way for those resources to communicate forward. The things that they've been through, try and relate that to some of the trials and tribulations that I might be going through. That's probably the most important for me.
The stuff that I personally look for is, are you a subject matter expert? And that manifests itself in a couple different ways, right? If people are asking well-thought-out questions in the audience and you can get into a quick conversation with them and show some depth of knowledge there and show some successes there, that goes a long way. So are you a subject matter expert? Do you have depth of knowledge in this? Do you have success? Are you talking about problems that matter to me? But if you're spending a whole lot of time talking about, how I can, maximize, the utilization of, a 300,000 node virtualization environment, you're not speaking about something that I care about. I work in public higher education. It's a substantially smaller environment than that. So I'm going to kind of tune out.
Now for our final question. What does your dream partner session look like?
For me, that dream session, and have definitely commented in similar veins earlier, is one that gives the end user community something to ponder in terms of solving a problem, what to investigate further, that you end up walking away going, I've really learned something. I'd almost have been willing to pay to learn that. That session that you walk out going, I learned something. I am so happy I'm here today and you're making notes to yourself, and I've got action items that I'm giving myself to follow up on this. And again, it will tend to be far more educational about how to solve a problem than a specific vendor offering. If the vendor offering meets that need, great, but it's really about how to solve a problem.
I think it's one where the partner shows up, has great enthusiasm, and can really be very the presenter can be very personable and also very technical at the same time, and that in and of itself can sometimes be a bit of a rare breed. It's delivering information that is almost immediately actionable, right? Like, hey, here's this issue, and here's how to fix it. And you can go back to your office and do that this afternoon without buying anything. That's real value when you get information that you can take away and use, that afternoon or the next morning in the office. Or if it gives you access into more information. In other words, hey, here's the basic gist of how to get into something. We've written some white papers that you can get up on our site about this. That's good too. I always like a lot of interactivity in a session. I think it keeps attendees interested. When you're up in front of a room like that, you're always competing for their attention because, the office is literally sitting in their pocket, right, on their phone. And if you can deliver content that keeps them engaged and focused while you're going through it, then they're a lot less likely to mentally check out and start, seeing what's kind of going on back in the office. So I would say it's that the dream session, kind of from start to finish, is all information that anybody in the room can use, whether they have your solution or not, for at least 80% or 90% of the session. The last 10% obviously is a chance for show where your organization or your solution can add value into that discussion, and giving information that's actionable right away.
Energy, getting up there. Being excited about what you're talking about, being prepared to give your discussion. I almost hate to call it a presentation, but more of a discussion, to get people that are there involved, get them curious, get them asking questions, being able to relay back to them the answers that they are looking for, if at all possible. And when in doubt, get some demos going on. Show us this. Show us the product or show us the issue and how the product that is being discussed or the partner that's being discussed, how they can help and where they fit in to the equation there to solve those problems.
That concludes our VMUG Speaker Support Leader Panel. We hope this information will be helpful as you submit abstracts for upcoming events. Thank you to our leaders for contributing and to our partners who contributed questions. We hope to see you at a VMUG event soon.